I never thought I'd see the day when police lights reflected off my living room windows because of my wife's footsteps. Yeah, my 7-month pregnant wife. The HOA president called 911 because she said my wife was walking too loud. But that wasn't even the craziest part. The day Karen Winters dialed those numbers was the same day she started digging her own grave, and I was more than happy to hand her the shovel. We moved to Eagles Landing because we wanted peace. Quiet streets, friendly neighbors, kids riding bikes, suburban calm after years in a cramped city apartment. My wife Leah was glowing with that calm, holy halo kind of happiness only expectant mothers have. And me, I was just trying to keep up fixing the house, tuning my motorcycle, pretending I knew how to install hardwood floors. We paid our HOA dues without question. We thought we were joining a community. What we didn't know was that we'd just stepped into a dictatorship with flower beds. The first time I met her, Karen was in my yard pointing a laser-guided tape measure at my grass. I'm not joking. She was out there like she was conducting a military survey, focusing on a single blade she said was a 1/4 inch too tall. She didn't even blink when I stepped outside. "Your lawn violates Bylaw 17C," she announced like a judge reading a sentence. I told her she was standing on my property. She looked me up and down, eyes full of disgust, like my grease-stained shirt was a personal insult. "You have 24 hours to rectify," she said. I almost laughed, until I saw the look in her eyes. It wasn't about grass, it was about control. She loved watching people squirm under her little badge of power. Her husband Richard was across the street leaning on a white Mercedes, smirking. Perfect couple him, the echo her, the megaphone. Leah came outside belly first, holding lemonade, still thinking the suburbs were full of kind people. "Hi, I'm Leah," she said sweetly. Karen looked her up and down and replied, "Stress isn't good for the baby." It was a threat disguised as concern. I felt my blood boil. That was it. The lawn, the laser, the smug husband, all background noise. But the second she threatened my wife, I stepped forward and told her quietly, "You'll stay on your side of the street and never speak to my wife again." Karen's face froze, then twisted. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she hissed. She was right, I didn't, not yet. The next few weeks felt normal, painting the nursery, fixing gutters, learning the neighborhood. There was old Mr. and Mrs. Johnson on one side, the Millers with 2 kids on the other, and 2 doors down, Stan the retired professor with wild hair and pink flamingos all over his yard. He told me, "Welcome to the Thunderdome. Queen Karen rules this place." I laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. The first letter came 3 days after we installed a small ramp for Leah. It made it easier for her to get up the steps. HOA violation. Unapproved structural modification. We applied for approval, explaining it was for medical safety. Denied. Reason aesthetic incongruity. I wanted to throw that letter on Karen's lawn and light it on fire. Leah stopped me. "Pick your battles," she said. So we took the ramp down. I thought we were being reasonable. But to someone like Karen, reason looks like weakness. Then came the fines. $50 for grass, $75 for a wreath that was 2 inches wider than the regulation size. We paid them all just to avoid trouble. But trouble wasn't avoiding us. We'd wake up to sprinklers blasting our door in the middle of the night. Packages vanished. Cameras went mysteriously blocked by new garden gnomes planted on Karen's side of the fence. Leah's smile faded day by day. And then came the day everything snapped. It was hot, the kind of thick summer heat that makes the air feel alive. Leah went to get the mail. I was inside cleaning a carburetor when I heard her scream. I looked out and saw her on the ground, drenched, crying. Karen's industrial-grade sprinkler was blasting her. She'd aimed it directly at our mailbox. Leah had slipped, trying to protect her belly. Across the street, Karen stood on her porch holding a remote control, smiling. I'll never forget that smile. We rushed to the hospital. I drove like a madman, praying under my breath, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The doctor said the baby was fine. Bruised, shaken, but fine. Still, something inside me broke that day. The angry, impulsive part of me burned away, and what replaced it was colder, quieter. purposeful. When we got home, I checked my cameras. I had her on video clear enough to see the remote in her hand. That was the moment I knew this wasn't over grass or rules. This was war. We built a file. Every letter, every fake complaint, every fine. Leah made spreadsheets. She was a project manager, and she turned her fury into data. I installed new cameras, night vision audio recording, cloud backups. Our house became a fortress. And still the harassment came. Anonymous reports to the fire department. Animal control showing up for a barking dog we didn't have. Karen was trying to crush us with bureaucracy. Then one night I caught Richard on camera cutting power to our block. He thought no one saw him, but I did. That could have killed Leah if she'd needed medical help. That was my tipping point. I could have called the cops, but something in me hesitated. It wasn't enough to stop them. I wanted to understand why. Why us? Why this? I'm a cybersecurity consultant by trade, so I did what I do best. I hacked. Their HOA website was a joke, no encryption, old plugins, backdoor wide open. Within an hour, I was inside the system. What I found made my stomach turn. Each month, the HOA paid a company called Suburban Enhancement Services, LLC. Tens of thousands of dollars labeled as beautification projects. The company's registered owner, Richard Winters. It all clicked. The fines, the intimidation, it was part of their business. Karen ran the HOA like a personal ATM, funneling money through fake contracts. I had the records, the proof. But then I hit a wall of doubt. Sitting there in the dark, staring at the data, I asked myself, what now? If I take this to the cops, they'll lawyer up. They'll spin it. They'll keep their house, their power. Leah will still be terrified to step outside. I felt like I was sinking, like no matter what I did, they'd win. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I should just sell the house, move away, protect my family that way. That night, Leah woke up and found me sitting at the desk, staring at nothing. She sat beside me, rested her hand on my arm, and whispered, "Don't let them take this from us." That broke the fog. She was right. I wasn't crazy. They were. And if no one else was going to stop them, I would. Stan came by the next day, rearranging his flamingos like always. I told him we'd had enough. He said, "You can't fight a dragon with a stick. Sometimes you have to use another dragon." He winked and walked off. Sounded like nonsense then, but it stuck. I crafted my plan. I made a fake proposal, a new high-tech security system for the neighborhood, a multi-million-dollar contract. I sent it to the HOA under a fake name, pretending to be a wealthy new resident. I even suggested they support local vendors. I knew exactly who Karen would choose. 2 days later, my phone rang. "Mr. Thompson." Karen said sweetly, "We take security very seriously here. Perhaps we can meet to discuss this project." She suggested my own address, thinking she'd meet this fake rich guy's project manager. Perfect. The next evening, I turned my living room into a trap. 4 hidden cameras, 2 microphones, everything streaming straight to Leah's laptop upstairs. She was on bed rest, but fully in command, monitoring every feed. I told her, "No heroics. If it goes south, call 911. At 7 sharp, the doorbell rang. Karen stood there in a crimson suit, Richard behind her with a briefcase, both smiling like predators who thought they'd already eaten their prey. "Mr. Carter," she said, offering her hand. I just nodded and led them inside. "Let's talk business," I said. "My boss understands every contract has administrative fees." Their eyes lit up. They bit the bait. "Of course," Karen purred. "Quality comes at a premium." I leaned forward. "He noticed something in your books. Suburban Enhancement Services. Big payments. Cayman Islands accounts. You two must be very efficient." Silence. Then panic. Their faces drained of color. Karen's mask cracked. "You," she spat. "You're that IT guy." "I am," I said calmly. "And this entire conversation is being recorded, along with every transaction you've ever made." Richard snapped. He lunged, grabbed the potted plant that hid one of my cameras and smashed it against the wall. There he screamed. No more recordings. I almost smiled. He had no idea there were 3 more. Karen grabbed her phone. "Code red," she hissed into it. My stomach turned. "Code red." Who the hell was she calling? I started backing toward the door. Then a voice thundered from the ceiling speakers. Laya's voice, distorted and powerful. "Get out of my house now. The police are on their way." They froze. Fear flickered in their eyes. I picked up an old VHS tape from the shelf, a blank one, and tossed it on the table. "This is what you want. Take it and go." Richard snatched it like a starving dog. "This isn't over," Karen growled. "We will bury you." Then they were gone, tires screeching, lights fading. 2 days later, a city inspector showed up. "Unsafe structure," he said, waving papers. Our home was being condemned for unapproved renovations. We had 72 hours to vacate. Turns out the inspector was Richard's cousin. They'd faked photos showing a missing wall. I stood there on the porch ladder, shaking in my hand, watching Laya cry, and for the first time in weeks I felt pure despair. They'd outplayed me. They were about to make us homeless before our baby was even born. Then Stan knocked on the door. "You might want to check your email," he said. His nephew was a forensic accountant. I had sent him everything weeks ago as a backup. He'd found something massive, bigger than embezzlement. Karen and Richard had been buying up foreclosed lots around the neighborhood using stolen HOA funds, planning to sell the entire development to a corporate developer for tens of millions. The harassment, the fines, the intimidation, it was all part of a long game to force people out. They thought they buried me. They had no idea I'd already dug their graves. The annual HOA meeting was their stage, their little kingdom. This year's was scheduled for the night before our eviction deadline. Karen planned to announce our removal as her final act of power. I planned to end her reign there and then. We walked into the clubhouse late. Laya beside me, 9 months pregnant, calm as a queen. Stan followed with his flamingo tie and a flash drive in his pocket. Karen stood at the podium, red suit again, smiling like victory itself. "We have some unfortunate business tonight," she began. "Yeah," I said, standing. "Let's talk about that business." I set the projector on the table and hit play. The first slide lit up the wall. Suburban Enhancement Services, LLC, registered to Richard Winters. Gasps filled the room. I kept talking, steady and cold. "Here's where your HOA dues went. Bank statements, fake invoices, transfers to offshore accounts." Then came the audio, their voices from my living room. Karen admitting to kickbacks, Richard panicking. The room erupted. People were shouting, crying, connecting their own dots. Karen's face twisted. "You can't do this. You're out of order." "Make it on the agenda," old Mr. Johnson said from the back. And then half the room stood. They'd all had enough. Richard lunged again, trying to grab my laptop, but 2 big neighbors blocked him. The timing was perfect. The doors burst open, and 2 police officers walked in with a detective from the White Collar Crimes Division. I'd emailed them everything an hour earlier, the full legal copy of the evidence verified by the accountant. They didn't come to argue. They came with warrants. They cuffed Karen first. The metallic snap echoed through the silent room. She screamed something about lawsuits and conspiracies, but it didn't matter. Her voice was just noise now. Richard followed, still shouting about the fake tape. And just like that, the dragon was dead. That's where I'll stop. Because the moment the cuffs clicked shut was the moment it all ended. The fear, the nights of watching cameras, the whispering through windows. She'd ruled this neighborhood like a tyrant, and she felt like one too fast and ugly. You know, people always say you can't fight fire with fire. Maybe that's true. But sometimes when the fire is burning down your home, you don't have a choice. You use the flames to light your way out.